I am going to call to order the meeting of the Urbana Park District Board of Commissioners, our regular meeting on Tuesday, December 10, 2019. Okay, remote attendance. We have no one remote who wants to attend.
Correct.
So we're good.
Yep.
Now, this is, I'm sure Michael's gone just because he knows I love to do this. We are having a tax hearing, and this is what I am going to say. The Board of Park Commissioners of the Urbana Park District, Champaign County, Illinois, are now opening a public hearing on the 10th of December 2019 at 7:02. That sounds good. The hearing is being held at the Planning and Operations Facility, 1011 East Kerr Avenue in Urbana. The purpose of the hearing will be to receive public comments on the proposed tax levy as required by the Truth in Taxation Law. Is there any member of the public who would like to make a statement during the hearing, the public hearing, regarding the proposed property tax levy? All right, those people, I know all those faces. All right, since there is no one here who wishes to make a statement regarding the proposed property tax levy, I am going to declare the hearing is closed.
Great.
Ha.
Thank you.
I just should have had my gavel. Right, now, the next item is to accept the agenda. I have a change I'd like to put into the agenda, and we have an additional change as well. So I'm going to start first since I'm sitting here. I would like to add an executive session regarding the purchase or lease of real property, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired at the end of the meeting. So, I don't know, do I need to take a motion? Do we have to have a motion, or?
We can.
Okay, could
We want approval.
anyone willing to?
So moved. Or no, second. You just need a second. I guess you're
Need a
chairing. You
second?
can make the motion, sorry.
Correct.
All right,
Discussion?
discussion. All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay,
Good.
then we need another motion.
I move to adjust the order of the agenda to move old business item B to immediately after public comment.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Kiddo, I hear all ayes, so no nays. Public comment is next. I still don't see any member of the public out there, so I think we can just whiz right by that. But under that, we also have Urbana Park District staff introductions. No.
None tonight.
None tonight, okay. Well, moving right along. All right. Aaron, I believe you are up next.
Evening, everyone. It's good to see everyone again.
Good evening.
My name is Aaron Gold. I'm a municipal advisor from Spear Financial,
Yep.
and I'm here this evening to go over the results of the sale of the district's general obligation limited tax park bonds, Series 2019B. I often refer to these bonds as rollover bonds. We held a competitive sale yesterday where we received 5 bids. The low bid was a 1.69% from Hickory Point Bank, Champaign, Illinois. A little bit about the structure of this deal. We anticipate closing in 2 weeks on December 23rd, same date as your Series 2019A alternate revenue source bonds. And this is a 1-year issue. The final maturity is on December 15th, 2020. And these are general obligation limited tax park bonds. General obligation meaning that they're paid from a direct property tax, but they're limited as to how much you can have outstanding in total, and then also how much you can levy each year to repay the principal and interest. And that limit for the principal and interest levy is called your debt service extension base. With the favorable rate from Hickory Point Bank of 1.69%, we were able to increase the issue size $6,460 to $835,285 to fill this levying capacity or your debt service extension base. And after the cost of issuance, this issue will yield $824,585 in capital proceeds to support your capital needs.
That's
A little
good.
bit about this rate from Hickory Point Bank. It is down 84 basis points from 2.53% last year. Park Ridge Community Bank won last year. Little frame of reference, we're in a lower interest rate environment right now. but we haven't seen rates come down that much. We've been seeing them come down 60 to 75 basis points. So Hickory Point Bank did a really good job coming in with a strong bid. And last year, they actually came in fourth place at 2.9%.
Oh, wow.
So they really sharpened their pencil to get your business this year. Great bid from Hickory Point Bank.
That's great.
We therefore recommend that the bonds be awarded to Hickory Point Bank, Champaign, Illinois, at the revised price of $835,285 at the net interest rate of 1.69%. If you have any questions at all concerning the issue, I'd be more than happy to help.
We really appreciate the work you do for us.
Boy, I'll say.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, I move to award the low bid on the bonds to Hickory Point Bank with an interest rate of 1.69%.
Second.
All right, we need a roll call vote. LaShawna, do you want to start?
Aye.
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 All right, that's all 4 ayes. So now we have the low bid on the bonds. Next, we have to adopt the bond ordinance.
I move
I
that.
move, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Garcon.
I move to adopt bond ordinance 2019-12, authorizing the issuance of $835,285 general obligation limited tax park bond series 2019B of the Urbana Park District.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, let's vote. Roger, do you want to start?
Aye.
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 That's it. Okay.
Thanks, Aaron.
Well, that's not long for a long drive, is it?
Yeah.
Happy holidays, everyone.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming. Have a
Happens.
safe trip. Boy, wouldn't it be nice if you could just, go into that little chamber and they could zoom you in to
Right.
Yeah.
beam him up? Yeah. Okay, UPDAC is next on our agenda. We have a report from Jean Paley, who is not here tonight yet.
Correct.
Right.
I was not at that meeting, so I have nothing further to say about it. Anybody want to?
We had a really good discussion. We talked about our health and wellness plans. I think there was a lot of enthusiasm, some very good questions. At least one concern about the impact of existing ball fields. I think what staff responded was with the adjacency of with Weaver Park right next door, our plan has always been to establish ball fields. And if we can preserve or save and continue to utilize any existing fields, like soccer or any of the ball fields, or acquire access to new fields like at the school site, we'd pursue that and be happy to stay on top of that.
Yeah, that's a particularly soccer-strong group at the
Right.
moment.
I-
So
exactly.
and that's good. We
Yeah,
need
it
that. I
is.
don't mean to belittle it, but
Right.
you can see that that's really top of a lot of the UPDAC members'
Right.
lists of things that are important.
I think overall there was very, very enthused audience about moving forward with health and wellness at this time.
Good. That's good to hear. And the next UPDAC meeting will be in January.
Correct. No
Yep,
meeting in
No meeting in
December.
December. Right. All right, consent agenda. A lot more pages here and I know what to do with. All right, so let me go through the things that are on the consent agenda and then somebody can make the motion. On our consent agenda tonight, we have the approval of the minutes of the November 5 study session, approval of the minutes of the November 12 regular board meeting, approval of the minutes of the November 20 special board meeting, monthly reports, including administration, planning and recreation. We also have approval of the monthly paid accounts payable, which always sounds redundant, but I know that it's not. And we have action to accept the philanthropy report and gifts listed with gratitude.
I move to approve all of the action items on the consent agenda and accept all the information items listed on the consent agenda in an omnibus manner.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, you want to start this time? LaShonda?
Aye.
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 Okey-doke, that's 4 ayes. That's all we got. Katie,
Hi.
you're good to go.
Thanks. I'm going to be discussing with you the performance of the Urbana Park District through November of 2019. So at this point in the year, the first report I'll discuss is called our revenue and expenditure report. It shows the balance for the end of the fiscal year, the prior fiscal year, the budget for the current fiscal year, and where we're at for the 7 months of the current fiscal year thus far. So our total revenues for the period of May 1st through November 30th were $9,500,000. And we have total expenditures of $6,673,000 with a excess of revenues over expenditures at this point in the year of $2,829,000. So we have a nice healthy balance at this point, but all of our revenues are front-loaded with our property taxes, so now this is kind of where we coast through the end of the year. So everything kind of slows down, but so we're not earning as much money, but we're also not necessarily spending as much either.
Seems like a fair way.
All right, the second page is just the capital improvements fund, which gets separated out from that first page where we're just looking at our operations. So our revenues for this period are $999,000 and our expenditures are $439,000. So we have an excess of revenues in the capital improvements fund over expenditures paid of $560,000, which for this point in the year is pretty miraculous. Usually we're in a deficit. But part of the reason for that is because we actually received $272,000 of the new bond issue in November as a good faith deposit. So we already received that, and we'll receive the rest of the bond proceeds on December 23rd. But I guess with these large issuances, they do a good faith deposit at the time of the sale. So we received it the very next day, and you'll see that when I get into the capital budget reports. But that's part of the reason that we have. The other nice thing is that the OSLAD grant that we're working on for Crystal Lake Park prepaid $200,000 before we started. And so they'll pay the other half of that reimbursement at the end of the project. But so that's part of the reason, our cash flows, are a little bit revenue heavy at this point, because normally a lot of the stuff we do is reimbursement based, especially for grants. And so it's kind of nice to have the cash flow in place to be able to pay for those projects up front. So that's where we're at with capital. And then the last item I like to point out on the all funds district-wide, this just takes those 2 pages and adds them together. And you can see that if the district were to end today, the very bottom line that has an underline on it, that we have $10,652,000 in fund balance. So that's where we're at right at this moment. After that are the working funds, our main working funds, which are the general fund, the recreation fund, the museum fund, and the indoor pool. And those are just kind of segregated out, but they're also included in all of these totals that we just went over. Do you have any questions about revenues and expenditures right now? Great. So the next report that I'll talk about is our treasurer's report. And this report lists the amount of cash that the district has on one day, November 30th, 2019. All 24 of our funds are represented for a grand total of cash on hand at the end of November of $12,367,330.68. If you go to page 2, at the top of the page lists investments that we have in interest-bearing accounts. So of that 12 million, just over 10 million is invested at some rate of interest. The rest is in our operating fund, ready to pay bills. I'm working with, you'll see in the agenda, Park Pool, that IPDLAF Plus. I went ahead and changed the name there, so that was an acronym you'd get more used to seeing, but I left the words Park Pool because that's what we've always called it. So hopefully after tonight, you'll see a third line for that, where we're going to open a third investment account with them for the bond proceeds. So that's a change that you can look for in the next month's reports. We had no changes to interfund loans for this period. These are just our standard operating loans. And on the third page, our disbursements for the month were $563,000. And there really wasn't anything out of the ordinary in November. So you'll see in December, we're going to make $1.6 million in bond payments. So that number is going to be quite a bit higher when we make those bond payments in December. So
Easy come, easy go.
but November was a pretty basic month for the district. And finally, I'll discuss the areas of no, I won't.
No, we need a motion. Accept the treasurer's report.
I move to accept the treasurer's report for audit.
Second.
Any discussion? All in, yes, we can just all say aye, or no. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, we're good to go.
All right, so sorry about that, I jumped the gun. The last thing I'll do is just discuss any areas of activity in the capital budgets. So you can see pretty much all the capital budgets presented tonight are actually proposed capital budgets that you're going to be asked to vote on at the meeting tonight, which we can always, revert back to the prior edition if we need to, but I just go ahead and present that proposed amount there. The first one is a brand new page. You've never seen this before. And this is to track our ARS bonds, our alternate revenue source bonds. So I'm going to begin keeping this as a separate capital budget that we can track as we spend that $5.8 million. So that'll be nice that we can view just those two projects on one page as they flesh out. So my idea with that is, because more things may be added to this for revenues, like if we get a grant for those projects or donations for those projects, but we can track just those projects in this budget. So I think it's going to work really well. And we'll flesh it out as more things become known. We don't know what exact contracts we're going to be spending on for either of these projects. So once we know, we'll add line items into them and adjust accordingly as we continue to revise it in the future. So you can see it on this page, though, that we did receive $272,100 in November as part of the bond proceeds.
Oh, there, it's right, there it is.
In the 2019 budget, there was quite a bit of activity. There's a couple things that I want to draw attention to, though, that I don't necessarily need to talk about every single thing. But we received our first reimbursement check for the year from CUSR, from the Champaign Park District for our ADA account expenditures. So you'll see in several of the budgets, they were actually touched, but that basically was reimbursing the James Room project. That was the accessibility improvement that we made in the kitchen there to add the accessible kitchen. And so those are across several of the budget years that we spent, as well as that special distribution that we split from the operating fund balance that CUSR had as well. We made some final expenditures on the PRC playground. We made some additional expenditures on the Meadowbrook Park House repairs. We also had some expenditures on the rock riffle project, which is just getting underway. So that's just starting now, which is pretty exciting if you've seen all the construction equipment in the park. And we also had a bill paid towards the Leo Park improvements and construction on the parking lot there. I guess I have an extra little star down here under Urbana Parks Foundation donations. Sorry about that. We also had some down under the Crystal Lake section. I kind of fleshed this out a little bit. We had spending on our first amounts of spending on the OSLAD grant.
Wow. Moving right along.
Yeah, definitely. Under the 2018 budget, there really wasn't a whole lot of activity, but again, we received money from Champaign Park District in two different accounts up here. One was from the special distribution, and one was just our regular ADA account, and that was also basically entirely for the James Room project. And then down below, we also had the final spending on the James Room, so that project's now fully closed out. Little bits around there in both those budgets were for tributes as well. I should have said that. In the 2017 budget, this is what I was most excited to talk to you about tonight. We made our last payment and received our final distribution, our contribution from the city of Urbana on the sediment basin.
Woohoo!
So we were able to fully close that project out along as part of the budget revisions that Andy and I are presenting to you tonight. So that was very exciting to see that project. And we didn't wind up spending as much as we originally thought we might have had to. So that was exciting. The city was committed on spending up to $200,000 on the project, and they only wound up having to spend $119,000.
Oh, that
So
must
for
have made them
their
happy too.
contribution, yeah. So
To remind the board that that's because the sediment became clean. It naturally aerated and tested clean, so we kept it on site. The reason we waited till now to close it out is because we had to reseed the area a couple times to get it suitable for the city.
Yeah, so we didn't have to transport it to a, you know, certain type of
To a special
landfill.
site, yeah.
And
Mhm.
so we saved a lot on transportation costs and,
Yeah. That's great, good
Great.
all around.
yep.
Yes, it is.
And then there was just a little bit of spending down at the bottom there on Crystal Lake as well. This is the budget that we're currently spending out of for construction crew projects. We give Keith, our construction lead, the budget in this budget each year. And so he just kind of works his way through them. And depending on the projects, he may spend more or less. Usually gets 20,000 a year added to what he's spending. So this is the one he's working on right now, and then he'll move on to the 2018 allotment. And there was a little bit of spending in the 2016 capital budget, just in the Crystal Lake Parks from general fund transfer line. So,
Well, we're now up to
Uh,
3 pages.
there's gonna be another one too, because the series 2019B will be a
Sure.
whole nother one.
Yeah, yeah,
So we got a lot of projects going right now.
we do.
We
And
really
And I
do.
do like, I'm not being,
I like having it separate.
yes, I think it's separated as a really nice idea, so.
Thanks, yeah,
Yes, I'm
I
not
was
being
thinking it would
negative.
really help us track it, because when I was looking back at Dottie's
Sorry.
work, and when we issued the bonds for the pool, and then also for when we constructed this facility in Hickory and all of those other projects, she just had it as a separate section on the same budget as the one from the regular rollovers, and that's fine, but it was just really a lot of lines. So I just
Right.
thought this would break it into 2 pages, and we can track it the same, you know, it's
Yeah,
just,
no, I think it's a great idea.
so.
Yep. Thank you for thinking of it.
Yep, so now Derek and Andy probably have some updates for you on
Yep.
various capital projects in the district.
We actually have some pictures today.
It's worth 1,000 words.
Can you see okay, Nancy?
You can scoot back. I can see mine. Well, look at that.
That is cool.
This is the saline habitat enhancement. Here's the plans that shows, here's Crystal Lake, here's the sediment basin. So what was included in the construction's basically these 3 riffles, and then double rock deflector here, here, and here, with rock toe to stabilize the bank. Ended up being about 42 lineal feet. So I've got a couple pictures of just what it looks like with the excavator down in the creek.
Is it floating on something?
No.
Oh, it's just,
Yeah, it's just shallow
okay.
enough. So here kind of shows the new slope where they have the rock toe. You can kind of see over here where
Oh.
what
where
does
some
rock
looks, and then there's
flow
the,
mean?
it's
Is it
like,
T-O-W,
kind of like a wall
T-O-E?
of rock that helps support
Okay,
the bank
at the
and
toe of
keep
the
it
creek.
stabilized.
At the toe of the slope.
gotcha.
Oh, that's why they say.
And they
toe.
have this riffle right here, we're basically in this section right here on these pictures.
Uh-huh.
And then here's the almost completed riffle structure. So they've basically been in construction or at our site for almost a month. They probably have a few weeks left for rock structures, and then out in the spring again to finish up any landscaping.
For folks watching at home, might just remind everybody that this is work being paid for by the Department of Natural Resources through a settlement received some 15 years ago for a spill that took place, but no district funds are being spent on this project. We're just the recipient of the project. And for Roger, this is close to where we do our benthic and vertebrate monitoring, so it'll be interesting to see how the stream bugs respond after we improve the habitat.
I had no idea it was going to be on such an extravagant scale. I'm thinking of rocks, not boulders. My goodness.
I think you've all seen when the saline fills up clear to the top, the
Yeah.
water's moving really fast. So things would be carried downstream if you didn't have enough weight to hold on to them.
Oh, amazing.
So next I have, this was kind of what was shown probably a little over a year ago, and then again when the board awarded the contract to Taylor Studios. This is our concept for the gateway at Meadowbrook Park. We have the Core 10 element with a kiosk sign, an updated map that then has a corresponding list of park features with more detailed information on each item, and then an interpretive sign here that tells the story of Meadowbrook Park, going from Prairie to farm and then back to prairie with the park district's management. And then this is donated by Dixie and Greg Witt. And then now we have some pictures of the install. This was without the kiosk. And I have Kara here to help
The scale.
show the scale of.
Did it make you go up the ladder, Kara?
That's
You
cool.
can kind of start
It's
seeing what,
beautiful.
here are some pictures with the kiosk put in as well. And then we have the quote sign on the back.
I love that quote.
Isn't it
Oh,
great?
Dixie and Greg must be so excited.
Yeah.
It
They
is
are.
just wonderful.
When that butterfly wing catches the rising sun, it's just spectacular.
Good.
Last thing that I wanted to go through was, this was another kind of older concept image that we haven't, I don't think, brought to the board's attention for a while, but it's the council ring at Meadowbrook Park. And so it's approximately in this blue circle zone here. Here's the pavilion, Prairie Plays off over on this way, and then there's the bridge. As soon as you cross the bridge, the idea is you'd have the path and then the access to the proposed council ring. We've had multiple meetings through the summer updating our design. This is currently where we're at. It's taking almost the full circle with the stone block seating, having kind of a donor potential opportunity panel on this block that's oriented straight from walking in. And the idea is to have kind of this concrete match as best we can the path concrete, but then the interior circle has that textured look to it that would then have color incorporated into the concrete mix itself. This is kind of what the blocks would look like. We have a sawn top and bottom with a rough face. This was kind of the older idea of what we could potentially do for carving in names for potential donors. I think Tim and Derek have been talking with our donor, had a discussion about a John Denver rock in Colorado, then kind of fed off of that.
Jeff and Charlotte spent a lot of time out in Colorado when they came across this exhibit in Aspen. It's at the Pitkin Library. And so we worked with Adams to locate what they're looking at and created our own version here. After looking at it, I think Jeff actually felt like he wanted to go with something a little bit more simple and drop the service barrier in the prairie, instead tell that story elsewhere closer to the entrance to the.
So what we're thinking is that we're pretty close to being ready to have a donor agreement in place and start going out to bid here in the next month or two.
So the donor agreement is for funding the whole circle?
Yes.
Yeah, the trees and everything there,
The trees or the hardscape?
both.
Okay.
There's four trees in the service berry here as well.
Well, that looks good.
It'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's all I had, unless there's any questions.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Executive Director. I'm sure you have nothing new to tell us
Today
about.
was the Urbana Park District Senior Holiday Lunch event at the Round Barn, thus the red shirt and the tie. You only get to wear that once a year.
And red scarf,
But they do
yes.
a great job, and the staff does a terrific job. And the club has, been very active for many, many years. So they always do a great job. It's well attended. A couple other items. I know Corky and Judy is here for another reason. Judy, you may want to slide up. In their packet, there was some information that the Nature Center staff put together. We were talking at another meeting about changes in schools and how it might affect us. So I'd asked the staff, hey, could you put some information together for the board? And I was mostly interested in, and staff may have some added comments, but I was really pleased with the reactive approach of all the things that staff did to try to regain business. So that's on that second page
Great.
in the report. So I just want to draw your attention, but certainly if you have anything to add. Again, we don't want to over-amplify the concern, but we could see some numbers and some differences in going forward.
you want to start out and I'll chime in?
Yeah, I first want to note that Chelsea did an incredible job on this project. I've been asking for quite a few years on why numbers have not stabilized for school programs and have continued to decrease, and got a lot of variety of answers, but nothing really concrete that explained it. And she did some real digging to try to figure that out. And there were two areas, specifically busing is an issue. It's very, very costly. We have had an increase in Urbana use because we have gone out and solicited donations to help fund their bus trips. And so that is one of the strategies that Chelsea has been doing to try to increase use by our local school district. On the flip side, we were always pretty much guaranteed to have a certain percentage of Champaign school children with us because the science coordinator made their tours part of the Park District's programs part of their regular curriculum. And so teachers had some choice in that, but not a whole lot, and they changed that this year. And the teachers were given a slate of possibility programs and to make arrangements themselves. And Chelsea did everything she could to make that selection process very easy, but we have seen a great decrease in the use of our programs for Champaign school districts. We think some of it is that their teachers aren't used to picking. They like the idea of picking, but haven't done that. We're hoping that our spring programs will be up, but how it really affects us is that this is a primary source for us to serve children of underserved populations, and we're not seeing those numbers this year. Revenue-wise, it doesn't really affect that much because the leaders only lead when we have programs, so direct cost isn't a big influence, and this budget is pretty bare bones. But as far as number of services that we can provide is greatly reduced, and it's going to show up in our seasonal report. She's continuing to look at other ways to expand out, she's working with the middle school and high school programs to see if there's some areas that we can expand into. She's also looking to see if there's services that are not being offered that we could develop programs to address. And because again, we have competition with some other entities in the area that we can't really compete with if they offer free programs, and we can't really have that luxury all the time. The other thing is she's continuing to look for donations, and then she's also trying to explore ways to really reach out to the teachers and find out what do they need, and is there a liaison they can have into the schools.
Does it have to be school buses, or could they take MTD?
They're
if it
not.
was-
We haven't had anybody use MTD in quite a while because that's a lot of transfers. But
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know
what
what
I
the
was wondering.
requirements are for schools as far as where they get their buses. But it's exceptionally expensive
Yeah.
for them to come to us by bus, and they don't allow them to carpool any longer, which is the primary way that they got to school, to this programs. And we've chatted just what's the possibility of, if this continues to be a problem, what are some of the possibilities of, do we find transportation that we provide in some way, or do we continue to look for donors that would help supplement that cost? But in the long run, it's the children who may never ever get an opportunity to come to the nature center are losing out.
Yeah,
That's the concern.
yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Just a couple quick things. I think one, when talking with Chelsea, she mentioned that now that the teachers get to choose where they want to go, they've been doing it in larger numbers. So they've been traveling like 4 classes at a time versus half the grade coming one time and then
Right,
another
right.
half coming another time. So that's a challenge. We have done a couple programs where we've had 90 kids there. Again, the challenge with that is the quality of the program. That tends, but for teachers, it's probably better because they've got more aides, more teachers that can
Right.
work amongst the group. So there's that, but I think most of all, what I like about this is the fact, and we do this in all of our areas, is we're seeing a challenge. We're looking into why it's happening that way,
Right.
and then making adjustments. like you said, Chelsea's done a fantastic job of putting the information together and looking into it. One other thing that we are doing is we've made a connection with Dream House. So we're going to be doing a Saturday program, very similar to what we're doing with the youth at the schools. So that's another way that we're trying to hit that underrepresented area and take care of some other individuals. But I was telling Tim and Judy and Chelsea earlier today, this is a lot like our third grade swim lessons. It has that's the impact.
Yeah, I know.
And that's
Important, and we
that's
can't
a
find a way to get it
big
working.
impact from who we're reaching and
Right.
who we're providing experiences for that may not get that opportunity.
What are the opportunities to integrate with Splash? Does that at all work?
We do.
We do.
I mean, but do they come to the facilities?
Yes,
part? Okay.
yeah, but that's an after-school program,
Right.
and it's not curriculum-based,
Yep.
where the school programs are state and nationally curriculum-based. She's looking at, our goal has always been to get them to come to our locations, but she is looking at developing programs for school site exploration because nature's there as well. And just like Corky said, we have had a couple bigger groups. One of the things that teachers have always loved about our programs is that it's a smaller group. We divide the kids up into smaller groups, and Busey Woods isn't quite big enough to take groups of 90 kids all at one time on a regular basis. The experience just isn't the same. But for the BioBlitz event, we did have 90 kids, 4 classes come, but it took not only Chelsea and Savannah involved with it, but part-time staff and Matt and his staff involved. And so that's a larger base of staff that you have to conglomerate into one time, as opposed to having 2 leaders that lead a hike out into the woods or out in the prairie. So she's looking at other opportunities, without, as Corky said, without losing the quality of the program. I know of centers where they take hundreds of kids at one time, and it's just, we don't have the natural features that can really sustain that kind of caring capacity.
Yeah, but it's not as good an
It isn't.
experience either. It's, I
No.
mean,
Right.
staff.
Yeah, these kids get,
Yeah.
really, it's a 1-to-12 ratio, and with an aide and a leader, then it becomes a 1-to-6 or
Yeah.
even less than that, and the kids are getting a lot of individual attention, which is really very special for them.
How many,
And having helped with a number of those tours, you really
Need 'em all.
appreciate having that kind of ratio
oh, yeah.
of leaders. You mentioned busing. What is the cost of busing a group of kids? Do we know? or-
Yeah, she had it in her original report. I want to say it's like $180 an hour. It's like ridiculous, and as a minimum of 2 hours. It's really, and
Wow.
yeah, and it's, and the bus just sits there. It's not like, it's
Yeah,
going,
with
it
its engine
can't
running.
simply drop the kids off and then come back later after dropping somebody else off. And so it's a pretty expensive adventure. I know that with the program that we've developed where businesses or individuals can donate toward a classroom coming, most of that cost is going toward busing. Yeah. And that's, I know of centers, there's a center in Milwaukee that they actually bus the kids themselves, bring their kids, but they're only working on a smaller basis of a mile or 2 away and smaller groups. But it's, something that we're evaluating long-term, what's the projection and how do we handle and what do we change our programs to be to meet those needs for teachers.
Do you think that enough of the grade schools, we'll just think about Urbana for a minute, are close enough to a park that as opposed to them coming to us, we come to them and take them?
Yeah, that
to the
is an
park,
option
actually
we're
make them
considering.
walk?
Yeah. Some of them, not all of them, have that luxury, but yeah, a lot of them. I mean, we've got Thomas Paine is right there next to a park. King is right next to a park.
Yeah, yeah.
Leal's only a couple blocks from a park. So yes,
Right.
that's an option that she is considering and developing.
Yeah,
It's not, again, the same experience as walking through,
Right.
6 feet of prairie grasses or, dipping in Busey Woods, but.
Better than zero.
Right, and we still offer the naturals in the classroom programs on our loan box materials. She's been doing some in-service workshops for Urbana schools. She's really made some headway back into Urbana schools and
That
getting
is
them
great.
involved. But losing Champaign is pretty catastrophic.
Yeah.
We've
Well,
also,
and it's bad for the kids. I mean, that's the bottom line.
we've also talked with the foundation about potential to raise additional dollars in addition to with youth scholarship. When Derek and Ellen and I met with the Yankee Ridge neighbors, that was one of the opportunities we presented to them. I think they were surprised to learn people weren't able to get to the nature center. So I think it had that impact of, once people know that, I think we might get some additional support. It's also in the range of, many people could probably help with that.
Right.
It's not a $500,000 project, and so we might get some traction, but it's not good news all the way around. Makes our job a little more challenging, but there's always other ways if we get those challenges.
But if we take a class to a nearby park, the other advantage of that is that I'm assuming most of the kids our schools are pretty much neighborhood schools, so that'll be someplace that they could more easily come back to and bring their family to and become better acquainted with it. So it wouldn't be, it would be not as good, but there are additional positives to it that I can think of.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Everything just gets harder. Wouldn't it be nice if something got easier?
Well, moving on to.
Thanks, Judy.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Do we know the number of Champaign residents or kids that frequent the Nita Purves Nature Center outside of school?
Not specifically, unless they've signed up for a particular program like our camp programs. We could look at residency and where they're located that way. But if they're just a casual visitor, we don't gather that kind of information from visitors unless they give us on their, if they sign in and give us their address. But most people just give us an email address at this point. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Moving on, as you know, one of our goals this year was introduce climate change and the various titles and aspects of that. But again, to kind of make it a premier focus of ours, had some really good efforts. The first step was establishing a discussion group, so we had some interest in that. And out of that came several good ideas. One of the people in the group was Warren Levy. He teaches in the U of I Law School, and so he was suggesting that he could perhaps bring the pre-law fraternity in on this project as a group. So we just went to their final presentation. They did a terrific job of putting some really great information together about all the aspects that other communities are doing. We also asked them to look at some of the professional organizations like NRPA, IPRA, ASLA, various ones that are sustainable minded in the work that they do. Looked at forest preserves, just a really terrific presentation by a lot of energetic youth. It'll be an excellent backup document that we could use as an outline or a sort of a guide. So we really pleased that we had that. A lot of good came out of that, working with the Forest Preserve and School for Designing a Society and University of Illinois Facilities and Services staff as volunteers. So that's all good. Some new programming opportunity. We've been discussing with the Urbana Free Library, working with us. We've done a number of recreational opportunities working with them. New idea that we're looking at right now is called Story Walks, and it's an idea of getting summer reading and walking brought together. I think there was a feature article in the IPRA magazine a couple of months ago. One of the districts up north, Arlington Heights.
Palatine.
Palatine had already done that, and they were featured in the article. And so we're exploring that. I think we have some interesting ideas. We also think there's some applications for underrepresented neighborhoods. I think in the IPRA magazine, there were more what I call fixed storyboards that would be set up in a park, fairly static, so people would need to come there and walk it. We were thinking there might be some other ways to make it mobile, or to put it on yard signs and take it out, or have multiple messages for different age groups. So we're exploring with staff Urbana Arts Commission grant to see if we get some funds to do that. So stay tuned. Hopefully that'll, again, bring two of those activities, getting people active and reading more. The Turkey Trot was really terrific day. We had a great turnout, so very pleased at that event. Had a lot of comments about the improvements in the park, so we're very pleased with that. Been working with the City of Urbana and Urbana School District, starting to meet with leadership there on a variety of topics, but I think what we would like to start doing is try to focus a little more on collaborating development projects, so that we can maybe, if we're working in the same area, hit things in a multiple way, so we might be able to leverage up some of our outcomes. A good example would be what we're doing at Blair Park. You know, we've made the city aware that we'd like to get the pathways put around the park. The two sides that don't have sidewalks are in the city right of way. That would be, at least at a minimum, sidewalks. And obviously they're committed on other projects. City's having some financial, challenges now too. So looking forward, it would be great maybe if we could start planning ahead, that they would be aware of our projects, we'd be aware of their projects, and the same with the school district. If there was a way to bring it together. An example with the school district was when they did some of their safe routes and improvements at Thomas Paine and put in a connector trail that at least got partway down the park on the end of their property. Mm-hmm. Perhaps if we would have known about that in the front end of that, we could have been in the beginning of that project to make the connection through the rest of Lohman Park. So we're going to try that. Obviously, take some focus. The timing all has to work. But even if we could occasionally hit a few projects that we could maybe make an improvement on a road or a park, streetscape, or something like that that could benefit others, we're willing to do that. So we'll probably be working with staff to help identify what some of those could be. Let's see. The annual TIF and Enterprise Zone meeting has not been set yet. There's new staff at the city that's going to be leading that, so we'll wait for the date. But typically in December is the annual meeting, so we anticipate that happening. Let me jump down. The IAPD and IPRA conference, as you know, is coming up in January. It's January 23rd to the 25th. Look forward to any of you all that will be joining us for that. The IAPD legislative breakfast for 2020 is going to be March 10th. We'll send out dates and continue to update, but we just secured that date for Champaign County districts, so we'll be meeting then. The Forest Preserve is going to host this year.
Oh,
so
great.
We're trying to rotate. I'd recommend that all three of our districts take a turn at that and give us a chance to feature what each of the groups are doing and hosting some of those duties.
I like that idea.
Let's see. For our age-friendly efforts, been working with Clark Lindsay, met with Deborah Erdens specifically to talk about maybe establishing a pilot program. Last January, I visited with their Saturday Night Live series. It's a once-a-month Saturday night event with dinner and speaker. My topic was Meadowbrook Park. Obviously, it's next door, so there was a lot of interest, but the resident response was incredible. But the main thing that many wanted to know if we could help is there a way for us and Clark Lindsay to help get people out into nature? There's a number of things, that they could learn or we could showcase, certainly art, nature, gardens, landscape, lots of other topics, health and wellness, movement, things like that. So we're looking at the possibility of trying to get some sort of trial program, maybe this summer or fall, where we could start doing that. And the idea would be it could also be open to the community, so older adults could come out there. There's perhaps a sponsored short tram ride or a golf court access. I think Clark Lindsay even discussed the potential to upgrade and get a different vehicle. Might hold more people. So we want to start talking. We're not finding any new staff but using our existing staff. But there's a way that we could try to do that and see if there's interest. I think just the idea of getting people outdoors, connected with nature in any way, would be a benefit. And they're fairly enthused about that, so we're working with Corky, Janet, and Jacob, and the Clark Lindsay staff to see if we could kick something off like that. It could be a really unique program, and I don't believe anybody in the area is doing that. So we're
I'd love it.
really pleased with that idea. And it may be something that if there was some cost, you know, there could be potential business sponsors that might want to tie on to a unique opportunity like that. So stay tuned for that. Staff's working with the foundation on the fundraising committee to try to put together some new marketing materials for what I'd call lower cost opportunities in the $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 range. They've put together some nice marketing materials, and so we're going to be meeting and identifying projects at various sites and categories that might fit that to help move that, maybe that level of giving along further. I did want to talk a little on health and wellness. We had a terrific open house last Wednesday night at the Phillips Rec Center. 52 people came. It was very exciting. There was a lot of energy in the air. Had wonderful exhibits. There was some neat I think you all saw that.
Flyover.
Yes, on the TV. And a lot of people really drawn
I
to
bet
that.
I just
Yeah.
were
I mean,
wowed by it.
it's pretty cool, and you get a really good idea of, what it is. And I think it really tells that extra story of you could picture yourself in that.
Yeah.
And that's,
Yep, yep.
you can look at boards and, yeah, it's good for somebody else, but I think it had a way of drawing people in. We're now analyzing the comments. I think Corky and staff looked at all of them. They look very positive. Certainly, we always have questions, and people that want to get more information about that. But we're on that rapid, process. If you recall, some next steps will be back at the January study session with updates with Farnsworth Group, working with them on that. And, sorry, let me get to my notes. Yeah, the park grant's coming up, so we need to be ready for that. So kind of all this build up to get the information, meet the grant requirements, find out what's in the grant, what do we need to provide, and keep the community involved and abreast of our efforts. I think at the special rec meeting, we talked a little bit with Champaign Park District, and I think Joe mentioned that he was aware of at least, somebody had mentioned DNR had over 100 communities interested in the park grant. So at $25 million, and each award could be up to 2.5, that's about 10 projects if they're all awarded. So we don't know if they'll reduce amounts to cover, more districts. So it's going to be very competitive. So we need to probably just put our best foot forward and see if we're one of those fortunate communities. We'll also be meeting with Scott Bennett, and we have a meeting set up with him. Also would like to meet with Carol Amons. We don't have a date set yet, but working on that, just to make our legislators aware of how important, critical it is to us and what it would mean to have our first indoor health and wellness facility right here in Urbana. I think that's all. Do you have any questions? It's a lot of things.
I was very impressed with how engaged the public was with all of the
I was too.
exhibits, with the Farnsworth staff, with our staff that were there. There was a lot of excitement in the air.
There was, and I liked everything worked really well in the space. There was a active room where people were beehiving, and then a side room where people could sit down and take their time with comments and, give some thought to what they wanted to say. So I think we're moving in a great direction. I think we have a terrific site. I think we had the same reaction by a lot of people. It wouldn't have maybe been their first thought, but as they looked a little closer, they could see how that site could work out well and what it offered in that neighborhood. So we're pleased about that.
Solicited comments on the site Prairie Park, and I'd say the vast majority of the comments were supportive. There were a few people who were like, well, downtown would have been nice, but we understand looking at your process while you're at Prairie Park.
Good.
So I thought that was really telling, and the designs certainly helped win people over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
There's all those solar panels on that roof.
They actually built solar panels for
Oh,
the
did they?
The forest of solar panels.
A whole jungle of them.
I think I forwarded earlier to you all the information on the VO ride. I think Kara put some information together. I think I forwarded it in a separate email, but the bike share program is going really well.
Oh, really?
And I think, for a newer program, there's a lot of numbers, and now the e-bikes are really starting to take off. So
Oh, wow.
that's exciting to stay tuned. So, And then I think it's information I shared to you on the Kickapoo Rail Trail. Vermilion County Conservation District just completed their section, and it's now open their first leg. So I know this has taken a long time, but in trail time, it's moving along, and we're getting some rapid pieces coming together. The bridge that the DNR is working on is going to be coming up next, and if we could get that up and open, that's really going to be an exciting factor. You'll see a lot of interest with people. So we're making progress. The fundraiser this fall did really well. It was at Sleepy Creek Vineyard, and great turnout, more people than the year before, and more money was raised, so it's very exciting, around about $10,000. So not bad for a fun evening out.
Every bit.
I can answer any other questions if you have any about other things. Great, thanks.
All right, President isn't here, and I have no comments. Liaison. Michael and Roger. Roger, I guess you're wearing the mantle tonight.
We haven't met. We met November 1st. We discussed the bond issue, health and wellness, and the 2020 grant schedule. We'll be meeting on Friday, 13th. Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th.
And the study policy group last met in May, and we're working on setting up meetings for January or February for further policy review.
Foundation met yesterday. They granted Park District $74,000 money that had been donated to them, including the money that went for that a new interpretive panel that was donated by the WITS. Also, Steve Rugg and Tom Brown, who were on the very ground floor of the foundation, have reached their term limits and are going off. And to me, they were honored at the meeting. But to me, it was very positive that there's people to step up, there's people to take over the positions and to move forward. So we just continue to look to diversify that group as best we can.
Yeah, it's nice to see there's some young faces in there that are moving into management positions, so to speak.
Yeah, into leadership.
Yeah, I'm very happy for that. All right, what are we doing?
Updeck Planning Study Group met last August, and we're looking to meet again in January to review the Updeck bylaws.
All right, old business. Up next. We are looking to adopt ordinance 2019-13, our tax levy ordinance. We must act on this.
Absolutely.
All right, so I think we need a motion, right? Do we need anything else before that?
I move to adopt ordinance 2019-13, an ordinance providing for the levying, assessment, and collection of taxes for the fiscal year 2020 and 2021 of the Urbana Park District.
Second.
Any discussion? Roger, do you want to start with the roll call?
Aye.
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 Right, that was quick. B, and we've done B.
Correct.
We've done B1 and B2. All right, that's it. My goodness, we're moving right along. So, new business. Annual priority projects report to the foundation.
Yep. Each year, staff puts together a list of high-priority projects, basically our highest needs. And the idea is that we talk with the Board of Commissioners for the Park District, make any adjustments, have discussion, answer questions. Ultimately, it gets forwarded on to the foundation, typically in January. Just wanted to point out this year, we have some information for you up on the screen to see, but we're really trying to streamline our focus around our strategic plan goals. So the 4 pillars of the district are really things that we're trying to really put up front. There's lots of things that certainly we need and would like to have or would be beneficial and help a lot of things we do, but I think the thinking is we want to be very strategic here on out, so staff's going to walk us through the presentation and answer any of your questions.
So we are approaching it differently than we have in the past. And many of you have seen the long laundry list approach that we have taken in the past, which was meant to be very comprehensive and put a wide variety of different options in the information for the foundation. But the feedback that we always got was that it was a lot. And it was a lot of information to kind of digest, and it was hard to sometimes focus on. So the approach that we've taken, Derek, Tim, Kara, myself, and Andy sat and looked at the wonderful strategic plan that we had done and really focused on that. And then under that umbrella, what projects could really be a focus for the foundation to grab a hold of.
So obviously with health and wellness, with our planned expansion of indoor recreation space, it's a
Right.
major priority and one that we really will need the foundation to strong concert with us. And so we made that our focus for health and wellness this year.
Right. And so under those pillars, yeah, the health and wellness is definitely a major focus. And the foundation is already aware of that. So, this is information that they've been aware of, that we were working into the process of planning for a health and wellness. And, we've been very upfront with them that we're going to need their support with that project, helping to find donors and funding. So that definitely, is the high priority for the report. Then on the next one, the placemaking, we picked several projects to recommend that are obviously very important and high priority to the district right now. Crystal Lake Park, because of the work that's in the process.
We're targeting really 2 sub-projects. We feel like we've got a lot of
Yeah.
resource for completing the lake edge. We're also going to be using the bond reissue to rehab the road, because that's not the sort of thing that would be something a donor would give towards or likely receive a grant. But we think that the Turkey Chop Path or the Nature Center counseling would both be things that would be of interest.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And then Blair Park, because of the grant and the work that needs to be done there. So Derek can talk about it.
At Blair Park, our grant covers, the new playground, the challenge course, the electronic play, includes the trails on 2 sides of the park. It doesn't include things like updating the building restroom, tennis court improvements, including the tennis court plaza gathering area for the city sidewalks. And so those are some additional areas that we would like to challenge for fundraising. As Tim mentioned earlier, we talked to the city of Urbana about the possibility of them taking care of the city sidewalks, and the timing just isn't good for them right now.
Yeah.
But I think once you have 2 multi-use paths on 2 sides of the park and the rest 4-foot sidewalk, there'll be a lot of interest, and hopefully we'll be able to make that happen before too long.
Right, and with the interest in tennis in this community and stuff, we think that's obviously something people might gravitate to as well.
Right. Yeah, I know that we've had questions in the past about, I can never remember this author's name, but the guy who played tennis at Urbana,
Wallace.
David Foster Wallace. Maybe we can use that as the starting point, because that might interest people, and he was here long enough ago that those people who knew him and would be interested in remembering him through tennis will have juicy enough bank accounts that they might be able to contribute a little bit more. And I know there has been interest on and off in the past, so.
We've had recent discussion about
good.
that too. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the foundation members have been reaching out to some of our former tennis alum from Urbana that have gone on to rather successful careers, and one of the things that they've heard is that there's interest in doing something to recognize David Foster Wallace.
Yeah.
Good. I have a tennis alum in my family. I could hit him up.
The last one is one of the things that we're just, something we think is kind of fun and exciting that would be good for some smaller donations. That's adding public art. The current strategic plan calls for adding public art to each of our parks, and it could be as simple as some of our peace poles. It could be something like fine art, and so somewhere of up to $50,000 we think would accomplish a lot.
I like that addition.
And then obviously you belong here. is, you know, core to the Park District and to our strategic plan, and we know youth scholarship requests continue to go up every year, so that is the focus here at this section. And I should just add the annual appeal that just went out, youth scholarships is the focus of that annual appeal as well. So, you know, hopefully we'll make some inroads to funding through the appeal.
Talking with Corky on this one, you know, kind of programmatic elements we think would be most critical to the foundation. And Corky said hands down youth scholarships, and I think maybe even a little bit of a down year this year. Is that right?
Yes, so on that end, fortunately, we do have some Carl donation dollars that
Oh, that's right, yep.
have been some, we've done really, we're over $12,000 scholarships through that
Just through that.
mechanism. Yes.
Oh, that is terrific.
But our actual scholarship fund that we have is $4,000 or $5,000 tops on money brought in, and we're, you know, well over that. I don't know the exact number, but well over what's being asked for.
Yep.
Of course, our final pillar is trails and connectivity.
Yep, and you know, that is a strong interest in the community. Trails are always highly mentioned whenever we talk to the community. So that, and the foundation is a strong supporter of that too, and that in that they supported, you know, the Trailhead Park, making a good contribution to that in previous years. So we feel that there will be strong support amongst the trustees and the foundation to really try and do something in this area as well.
You'll recall that our connectivity study calls for connecting to the KRT just above to the east of Smith Road, just above Baker's Lane. The city of Urbana has acquired a lot there. It doesn't make full connection yet, but you know, they did that sort of opportunistic. It was a lot that had been essentially abandoned, and so they're interested in working with us. We've already gone out and looked at some of the trees there for preservation as they prepare for demo. The real key, of course, is that missing piece of rail bed between Smith Road and the Forest Preserve District, and that's getting pulled into the study we're doing currently with RPC, looking at how to bring the trail to downtown. So pending the completion of that study and some appraisal for some additional lots, we think we've got some real good targets for the foundation, but at this point, a few things still need to be worked out.
That's good, because we're not doing it alone.
Right.
And if you've got the city working, I think that when people see that there are more folks stepping in,
Right.
and that progress is being made in
Right.
addition, that's, nothing succeeds like success.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is wonderful news.
So hopefully this format is one that folks find a little bit more inviting and
This
welcoming.
is
than-
phenomenal.
You like it? Oh, good.
I love
We
it.
like
Good, good.
I mean, it's visually appealing, it's succinct, it's what donors want to hear, and it makes us look like a laundry list is just
Sure.
confusing.
My favorite.
And not, doesn't I just, to me, it really showcases the level of the work that we're doing within the
Right.
community.
Good point.
What I think we really like is we've got staff, board, and foundation working together seamlessly on these top priorities. There was always a lot of potential off-ramps, but being able to focus our energy and really
Yeah.
get some things done, we agree with that as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it kind of reinforces
Yeah.
what we're doing by an extension of what they can help us do and what staff's out, trying to promote and constantly stay on top of.
Yeah.
And at yesterday's meeting, you know, we told them, not specifics, but said, you know, we were working on this kind of approach, and they would be seeing this at the next meeting in January, and they were very excited. They're looking forward to getting this, and I think they're really excited to be able to focus better, and I think this does that.
Yeah, another benefit of that really good strategic plan is
Right.
that it's
Exactly.
given
Yeah.
such a good framework and such a
Right.
nice, simple framework to hang all of our messages on.
Right. I think everyone feels like they can grasp it and it makes sense to them, and it's not 200 things floating in different parks and, to try to track.
Karen did a tremendous job of taking our thoughts and
Yeah.
putting them into
Yes,
you know,
indeed.
The same
document in a way that
format.
it looks
Yeah.
reads like a complete strategic plan.
It's
Yeah,
really
it's
important,
good.
just the graphics, the language, everything, the more you can get it streamlined, it starts working in a very synergistic way.
Yeah, I mean, the footprints and the gear here, all those little symbols, it's just, it's a beautiful whole.
It is.
Yeah, instead of just a piecemeal kind of attack.
So I think our hope is if there's any changes, certainly let us know. But I think our attempt would at least get some endorsement from the board that it would go forward and be shared with the foundation.
I think we have to adopt it, right, or accept it?
Yes, I think we do.
So we can give you some endorsement, right? I move to accept and forward the 2020 Annual Priority Projects Report to the Urbana Parks Foundation.
Second.
Any more discussion? Ayes?
Aye.
Ayes?
Aye.
Okay, there were no nays, there are no nays left. Okay, good.
Thanks, Ellen.
Yes, thanks
Thanks,
very
Ellen.
much, yep. All right, Katie, you're back with investing. Right? Is that
Okay,
next?
yes. So I talked to
things to
several
take.
banks, and I had to move pretty
Oh, well,
quickly.
that's why I can see people.
But Michelle Binns, who we work with at the Illinois Liquid Assets Fund, that we also call Park Pool, I really enjoyed speaking with her. I just really feel like they're going to be able to manage this money well for us. And my recommendation is that we open an account with them in order to deposit the proceeds on December 23rd.
Anybody want to make a motion? Should we discuss it
I
more?
move to open an investment account with IPD LAF Plus.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, LaShawna, you want to start at the roll call?
Aye.
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 All right.
Great.
Thank you, guys.
More money, more money. All right, so 2020 capital improvement budget.
I've got, Katie and I have drafted a memo, and it's the 2020 capital improvement budget, the 2019A capital improvement budget that Katie went through with you during her portion of the meeting, and then we have a number of revisions, and I'll briefly go through some of those revisions now, starting with 2017. You should have lines highlighted on your document. Starting in the revenue section, we have updated our grants from ITEP and donations for the ITEP Park Street Path from Carl, and closed out the sediment basement project with the city of Urbana. Just to note, the grant number has been reduced by a pretty significant amount, and that's because when we had put the budget in, we were under the assumption that we would receive all of the grant money and then bill the state. And then what actually happens is with construction portion, the state keeps the money, pays the invoice, and then bills us for our 20% share. So we don't actually take hold of all that money.
Gotcha.
So now we've got that finalized and cleaned up a little bit in 2017. 2018, the tributes and donations line has been actualized, as well as the ADA funds, and then the funds from the foundation for donations for Meadowbrook Park Gateway in the revenue section, and then it's reflected down in our expenditure section as well. Going into that central expenditure section, you'll see the tributes and donations updated with the gateway updated number, and then close out for James Room project and landscaping. So those expenses have been finalized, and then remainders moved to general contingency. Going down into the equipment section, we had a couple small additional expenses. The first one with the 1-ton dump truck for a radio, and the showmobile title and license costs have now been included. And with our Crystal Lake improvement section, we've updated the water quality to reflect actual expenditures over the past year with herbicide treatment and water quality testing. And then our pillar relocation as part of the ITEP project then came out of our CLP improvements section as well. Down in the general contingency section, we've updated that contingency amount to reflect the closed out projects from above, as well as outlining some additional expenses from Blair Park survey work that's related to the OSLAD grant, closing out the one-way study, and then we have funds set aside for closing out Meadowbrook Gateway, and that provides the contingency as well for that project. In 2019, starting at the top revenue section, you'll see some new lines added for Carl donation for the mobile park van, the foundation funds for Crystal Lake Park improvements in the amount of $120,000, IDNR, IGA, the Rock Riffle project, that's the additional construction funds that we received. And then, and the last line there is the $400,000 OSLAD CLP grant. And going down into the expenditure section, we closed out PRC Playground, King Pavilion painting, and those remaining funds then went to contingency. And you'll see the rock riffles as reflected up above in the revenue section. Down at the very bottom, general contingency has been adjusted, and then we have two new items to reflect expenditures for Blair Park Master Plan, which was the OSLAD grant work, and then additional funds needed for our health and wellness feasibility study and contingency associated with that project as well would come out of this budget.
I have a quick comment about this budget. First of all, sorry about the inconsistency of the zeros all over the place. I tried to clean that up in the other budgets, and I guess I missed this one. I tried to fill them all in instead of leaving them all blank. But I wanted to point out the $120,000 from the foundation. That's for Crystal Lake Park. This was part of their campaign, one of their campaign pillars, and they've actually brought in $120,000 that's available for the project. And so we're budgeting to request that from them in April once some of our construction period has begun. So I thought, because we know of it, let's go ahead and get it budgeted.
Yep.
That way we're tracking it and can get it into our budget whenever we can. And I warned the finance committee of the foundation that I was planning on billing that in April. So they're aware as well as far as for cash flow to have those funds available to us when we come to bill them at the end of our fiscal year. So that's pretty exciting, I thought. I mean, that's a really great fundraising effort for that project.
It is.
It'll really help us close some gaps.
Okay, that takes care of the revisions, and then we have, you'll see in your packet, the 2019A ARS bond. Katie had already explained, we have the bond sale, less the cost of issue, and then it's split in half between Crystal Lake improvements and then health and wellness initiatives.
And I guess I just wanted to point out to the full board about what I kind of said at the capital projects meeting on Monday too. The bond documents don't necessarily specify that these funds need to be split 50-50. You know, we could spend, they say we need to spend them on these two projects. That's
Right.
very clear. But we could spend all of the bond money on one project or the other project. But we internally as staff want it split evenly. But as those projects flesh themselves out, if there's more need here or more need there, that'll come out in future revisions.
Okay, so we
So
can
this
shuffle
is
that
just
back
a
and
starting
forth.
point.
The last thing is the 2020 capital improvement budget. We presented this in October. We don't have any other changes, but just to review real quick again, it's geared towards improvements at Blair Park. So it's related to the OSLAD improvements, or if we don't get the grant, we still have money funded to cover our priority projects and what came out in the public meeting at Blair, which is the playground and path work. And so you'll see Blair items, they'd be taken out of ADA, our contingency, trails project, and then there's a separate line item for Blair Park Playground as well for $100,000. Vehicles and equipment is a larger line item we have of $160,000. That includes custodial van, 2 trucks, wide area mower, and a tractor from 1991. All of those exceed our regularly scheduled replacement plan, especially the tractor. So because of our storage here, we're seeing longer life come through for our vehicles, which is good. But we also want to make sure we keep up on a schedule so we don't get a backlog in the future. The other thing I wanted to mention was that hardscapes and fencing line of $150,000. I think typically it's around $40,000. And as part of the strategic planning process, we had a goal to budget for and take care of parking lots and infrastructure that we currently have in place. It came about from our operations supervisors. And so our plan is to be able to use this hardscapes and fencing line in this year and following years to be able to do those types of initiatives to accomplish that goal. Last thing I'll mention is that we have a CLP phased rehab of $150,000 here as well, and I think it's in the next 2 capital budgets that we have planned at this point as well for future improvements. Are there any questions? A lot of budget stuff.
It is.
All good.
Money, 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 yep.
Are we ready?
Yep.
I move that we approve the 2020 capital improvement budget 2019A, and revisions of the 2017, 2018, and 2019 capital improvement budgets.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, let's vote. I think you can start.
Aye.
I get to push the button. Aye.
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 Okey doke, that's it. All right, take a hike. No, take a walk. That's next.
Judy and staff are here to give you updates on the proposed new exhibit.
See your notes.
Very excited about this.
Uh-oh.
Then-
Oh, there it goes.
Lots of staff effort into this project.
Okay, I gotta move. My neck is gonna be so stiff. I won't
Yes,
even
it
get
is.
I just wanted to apologize. We often sit you at the other side, but sometimes at a board meeting with, if there's any
Yeah.
guests, you'd be at back.
Oh, yeah. No, this is when we have
You can
chairs
certainly
with
move
wheels.
If you'd like to sit at the other end of the table.
We're fine.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so this exhibit was the original management exhibit for the Nature Center that we did in 1999, 2000, and 2001. It was an interactive computer game where patrons went for a walk with Anita and explored Busey Woods and Meadowbrook. Those were our only natural areas at that time. And we've obviously expanded that. That technology became outdated. We worked with Taylor Studios a couple times in updating, and then it just went out of date. And so right now it has a video showing on the screen. So the first approach is to make the exhibit look like it fits where it is. The field station is designed to look like a study place, a place that a scientist may gather and add materials and explore and input data. And so there'll be a computer. This is basically a computer activity with lots of facets. There's a button, a push button control on the left side by the pine cone that's sitting there in the visual. It's what operated the old exhibit, and the designers have made it instead be a directive of what to do, touch the screen to begin, and so it'll merge with what's already there. We have a character. Jack will be the guide through the experience, and he will lead visitors from each experience throughout. In the history of our owls, we haven't always had just one-eyed owls, but that seems to be the case at the moment, so we took advantage of that.
Hallmark.
Right. So we will have two language choices to make the exhibit much more inclusive for visitors, and it'll, once they pick whichever that will be, that's what the rest of the exhibit will follow through with. Each exhibit section is represented with a clickable screen icon. So for example, the natural areas choices are wayfinding signs. The management strategy are notebooks. The watershed section is a model. And for the future, the bulletin board will have Post-it notes of things to do in the natural areas. There's also some fun interactives that happen if you click on a drawer, a squirrel may pop out, or if you click another area, there may be a bird or a butterfly of some type going by as well. There is a lower right hand as a scavenger hunt, and if they click on that, it'll take you to a list of animals and plants to look for, and those will flitter through the exhibit as you go. And so it's an ongoing search for things that are surprises throughout the game. Okay. This is a module that shows you the flow chart for the main sections of the exhibits.
So I think, and we'll take you through an example of going through
Right.
one area. It's kind of just a schematic that starts to show how many layers are actually involved in this, and this is really just the beginning portion. And once we start getting into further and further, we'll have another schematic. You'll see how involved it actually further gets.
Right. So the next one we're going to pick, let's walk through Busey Woods is our selection that we picked. And so here I'll walk through one of the exhibit sections. The owl will guide the way. If you click on the Busey Woods signpost, the window will pop up with choices for the natural area. These are continued throughout all the natural areas. So if we click on key species, that'll take you to a series of choices of key species that we're going into more depth with.
And obviously, you can see how the design team's really taking that we're in BC Woods now. When we go to the other natural areas, you're actually giving that look that you're actually in the park. So this is really a custom programming approach here.
And so here we may have selected owls, and it'll talk about the various types of owls that live in Busey Woods, and we'll include some sound included. So if they click on that species and there's a sound chip, then it'll play what the sound of the owl is for that. So here's more detail, as Andy had mentioned, where it goes into what the key species might be, what are the focuses for those natural areas. And we had.
So what we did was we went to the main menu, and then before that schematic really just had 3 main areas. Now we picked one main area that was natural areas. Just within that, now we go into Busey Woods. Then we pick key species. Then you can see how it's breaking down all the species we could have chosen. We chose owl, so then an owl, you can see how it breaks down even further.
Right.
But I mean, that would go on for every item here.
Right. So these are more schematic or drawings of what those may look like. As Andy said, they vary from what the natural areas are. The four main natural areas are Meadowbrook, Weaver, Perkins, and Busey Woods, but we also included Crystal Lake Park as a natural area. And so, for example, there'll be for the Crystal Lake one, there might be a paddle boat that zooms across at one, well, not zooms, I guess. Paddle boats don't really zoom, do they? If you clicked on the Gone Fishing icon, this will pop up. So if you click on the owl, hit the fishing rod, or and the line will move along, and then you click on what you wanted to pick up. It would tell you more about the fish that live there and other animals as well. The object of the game is to be as fast as possible and add points to your system as you're going. So again, here's another section of it is how we manage our natural areas. Again, it's a breakdown of a major topic to another topic down to more detail as we go. So, for example, the other third section is our watershed focus. The Park District, all of its natural areas are watershed management sites, and so we want to teach people about what a watershed is and how we manage those sites. So if they had clicked on, there's a video that will be included in this, and then there's also a couple games with this one. I think that's on the next slide. Yeah. So you have a choice of either clicking on the clean up our watershed or freshwater stream diversion, the clean water game offers 5 options where you have some scenarios and you have to choose what's the best scenario, and it gives you points for how correct you are. And the freshwater stream one is you want to build a water system before the water catches up, so it goes to the right place. And you gain points for how fast you can do that, and gear and things that you might need for the future. And that should be the last slide.
Yeah, I think the last thing we'd note too, just as far as budget, in April, the board approved a general fund transfer from the museum fund. That was for solar work and for this Take a Walk exhibit. So you'll see that 2019 now a capital budget line for $75,300, and then we're putting in $5,000 from the exhibit line in the current museum fund operating, just to give us a little cushion for contingency purposes. In our discussions with Alan, it feels like we're pretty good on where we're at just from the design process. They know what they need to do, they just need to now program it, so we should be in pretty good shape.
And this exhibit is was the closing piece for the 40th anniversary plan for the Nature Center. We had originally hoped to have it in this month, but delayed with some of the planning process. We wanted to make sure we had the right things that we needed and the funds that we needed. So we're looking at it going in sometime this spring.
What do we think the lifespan of the exhibit is?
Well, the nice thing about it is the technology is pretty simple, and the tweaking of whatever might have in the future should be pretty easy as well, because they're developed as modules. So 2 of the modules that we do not have, that we have planned for, that we don't have the funds for, is one on the things to do, and then the one on a bio blitz that we hope to fundraise. And we've been given pretty much that it would be 5 to 7 years, which is a typical lifespan for an exhibit. We tend to tweak that and go farther generally, and so we hope that we can build from that. But this is the first major exhibit that we've done since the installation in 2001.
And so I take it this company's name is not Edison?
No, it's Eidson.
Eidson?
Yeah.
I looked and I thought, a typo?
And this is an exhibit firm that was recommended by another exhibit firm that we work with Taylor Studios. They felt that this was an electronics, and to go with a firm that has done this kind of work pretty regularly. He's exceptionally easy to work with, which is unusual, to be perfectly honest.
Well, I move to award the bid of $74,872.50 for the Take a Walk interactive exhibit project, with the contingency of $5,427.50 to Eidson Studios of Benton, Arkansas.
Second.
Any more discussion? Any discussion? All right. Roll call.
Aye.
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 That's it.
Thank you.
All right. EDA, that must be Kara.
No.
Did I miss something?
Meeting
Yeah.
calendar.
Oh, calendar. It's at that time of year, okay?
As you recall, last month, we looked at the actions, which are the topical actions. That was just for your reference, but we do have more of an official meeting schedule
Right.
for the board study sessions and the regular meetings, and for UPDAC scheduled.
Thank you. I'll make sure Kelsey updates it before we post them.
All right, does somebody want to make a motion? Do we want to talk about this? Do we?
I move to accept the 2020 annual meeting calendar for regular board meetings, study sessions, joint meetings, and UPDAC meetings.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. That's it. We are unanimous.
Next is ADA.
And next is AD. I'm getting there.
Hello. Hello. So every year at this time, I come back just to give an update on our ADA transition plan and any other ADA projects that we've done in the past year. And 2011 was when we first started the plan, and we've already accomplished a little over 44% of the things in this plan. And so this ranges from easy fixes such as when we were audited, there were things blocking a doorway or a wheelchair couldn't appropriately turn within a space, all the way up to things that would need to be worked on via an actual reconstruction, so like a doorway being too small or a countertop not being low enough and things like that. So some of them are easy and some of them are more difficult. We find that maybe we don't get as many done in a year because they take more resources now, but I'm really proud of how we continue to move forward. So there wasn't one park or facility that had a lot of improvements this year. There was actually something in 11 parks or facilities. And I always leave in here that there's annual maintenance, so safety surfacing at the playgrounds, or there are ADA picnic tables, and just grounds maintenance type things that is keeping access points to different parts of parks. At Ambucks and similarly at Crystal Lake, Meadowbrook, and Victory, just installing the metal ADA benches, either through donations or our own projects, actually helps with a lot of things that were called out in the plan. So frequently, a wooden bench won't be near an accessible path, or it won't be the correct height, or it won't have an armrest to help someone get up. It won't have a buddy spot for a wheelchair next to it. And just by adding those amenities, we're actually checking a lot of things off of our transition plan. So when in 2011, when the audit was done, Ambucks didn't have any metal benches, and now there's 4. And similarly, at Crystal Lake, Meadowbrook, and Victory, the percentage has really gone up. So what you're going for is 20% of the benches in a park to have these amenities, and you can see at Crystal Lake we're at 43, 47% in Meadowbrook, and 25% in Victory. So maybe not the most glamorous of ADA projects, but really it makes an impact when people are visiting the parks and trying to relax. Mm-hmm. At the cottage, thank you to our neighbors Culvers. They actually helped us to achieve some things in our plan, because where staff was parking was not technically an accessible surface. The parking stalls were not actually outlined, and there was no specific ADA parking. So now that we are having to expand upon the parking for our staff, it's actually checking some things off of our list there too. The dog park with the new access gate was previously out of reach range, and now it's within that range, and so that's something that really makes a difference. The things at Lohman were actually also bench related. They were owned by the school district, but they removed those, and so that was something from our plan. The new Phillips playground was some 3 specific deficiencies actually. So frequently we get called out for not having ground level play amenities. So in order to interact with the playground, you have to be able to get up on the structure, and the one at Phillips has a variety of different things. So there's like where you can play music, or there's the little games where you can move small pieces around, and you can do that from ground level. Prairie was just relocation of some trash cans to be along accessible routes. And then for King, Meadowbrook, and Southridge, there was signage that was not along an accessible route and not compliant. So basically, we used to have signs at Meadowbrook that said trail courtesy, but they were like 12 feet off to the side and fairly small. And so really what we just tried to do is when we made our new park rules signs, put them near the entrance to a park, and so that anyone would be able to see it. So they're things that, you know, may not think about until they're called out on something like this, and then it makes a ton of sense, and it's really better for all of the users in the end. One thing that was not actually called out in our transition plan was some door improvements at the Phillips Recreation Center. So after a MS Moves class, and just with some input from the staff at Phillips, we found that you would press the first button to get in the front door, and then you would kind of have to scurry over and get to the other button, and maybe it closed too quickly, even if it was just staff trying to push a cart in or something like that. So Shane was thinking this is a really easy problem to fix, and now when you press the button, both of the doors open, and anyone can go in. So one will open, and I think there's a slight delay on the second one, so they're not just wide open in the winter, but one will open, the second one will open, and it makes it better for everyone again. And then looking to the future, the OSLAD grant that we received for Crystal Lake Park, specifically, we're just looking at the playground replacement and the boat dock and the ramp area there, will have another 15, I believe, or 12 things checked off the list from grant funds. So overall, I just wanted to say how proud I am of when we get new projects through our capital improvements. We are providing new amenities, but we're also making other things better and alleviating some issues with our transition plan as well.
Cool, thank you.
The older I get, the more I appreciate this, and the more I travel, the more
Sure.
I realize how lucky we are to live in a country where somebody actually pays
Right.
attention to this, because so many places in the world have not only they have nothing, but it's like they've made it purposefully difficult. So I think we're very fortunate, and I think we're doing we as a park district are doing a great job to, because I remember that list of things was
Yeah.
5 miles tall, so we're making good progress.
Yeah, definitely are.
Yep.
It's often things you don't see or think about, but if it affects you personally, it sure makes a difference.
Yeah,
I'm
the
sure-
light bulb goes on.
I'm sure
Yeah, yeah.
Shonda thought a little more about
Yes.
accessibility
Yes.
with your recent situation,
Yep.
so
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
affects a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate all the staff that work hard
Oh, yeah,
on every
definitely.
level and every aspect of it.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. Whether we're just sort of one-time wheelies or all the time wheelies.
Thanks, Kara.
Yeah, thanks. Good work.
Thanks, Kara.
All right, we are reviewing our goals.
Yes, as you know, goals are tied to our fiscal budget. Our historic look back is we've done very well with our goals, obviously linked to our budget. Staff take their budgets and their goals very serious. We do it in a team fashion. Tonight, we're going to review what I refer to as district-wide goals. Certainly, each staff group has their goals, and they continue to work at that. But these are probably things the public notices or anticipates or looks at. As you know, each year we've kind of gone through this long list. It gets very difficult to view it and see it. So we've tried to find a shortcut version or a way to streamline our thinking. And so we have a presentation we want to draw your attention to on the screen. I'm going to walk through it. And again, the attempt was to speed up our process, but we found in
We're not going live.
well, just in the review, it's very exciting to see a lot of work. So there's a propensity to comment, so I'll try to keep my comments very brief. Again, we're going to look at these goals and achievements. Again, I think that's it. We're focusing our capital or our annual goals around our strategic model. So next year you won't see the modified wheel. You'll see our strategic goals. Capital improvements, starting at the top with that. Certainly we've touched a little bit tonight on Crystal Lake Park, the ITEP path, lake restoration, road analysis, getting us ready for a one-way road system that'll allow bikes, peds, and automobiles on the same route. Meadowbrook Park, farmhouse improvements, obviously ongoing efforts at the Indoor Aquatic Center with the big addition of the pool pack system replacement this year. King Park, the painting of the Jetty Roads Pavilion. Phillips Rec Center, lots of things happening there, but things that we're excited about is the new playground installation for this year. By the way, it's getting a lot of use. People like it, a lot of good comments. Victory Park, the additional land acquisition and the opening up of that space, and the solar panels at the Anita Purvis Nature Center. Certainly in the area of events and partnerships, lots to be pleased with. This is our extended outreach. The art fair at Crystal Lake was a smashing success. Look forward to the future growth of that. And the downtown Get Down events. Certainly the mobile stage allowed us to offer that. We have a lot of staff present at that event that really engage with the public and make it fun for the families. They do a terrific job. CU Special Rec, as you know, we had our joint board meeting this last week. We are pleased with our strategic plan goals, things that we've achieved there. I wish we would have had more time to talk about that. I think Corky and I are going to make some recommendations on how we could liven that meeting up a little bit. I think it was, short on the excitement. While we know it's an extra meeting that everyone needs to get together, we want to make sure that the staff that works as hard as this staff gets the time and attention and the focus on their accomplishments as we do.
And it's great to finally have a full staff,
Right.
complete
Yes,
full
indeed.
staff,
Yep,
so.
yep.
We're finding some success there, but some things I certainly wanted to highlight is the Theater 101. Again, every program is fantastic, but going that extra step and trying to create a theater and a film presence is just extraordinary. I don't know of any other districts that are doing that work. We're also working on applying for an arts grant in Urbana for that as well, so real excited.
Yeah, and it's something new. It's not that they're just keeping doing the same
Same
same old
things.
programs. They're
Right.
really looking for new ways
Right.
and expanding in
Right.
some really interesting ways.
We're seeing as our participants, become older adults, certainly these kind of, more adult activities certainly attract them and their families, so we're real pleased with that. I think we heard a brief update on the expansion or not expansion, the renovation at the Old Leonard Center in Champaign will be the new offices, but we're equally promoting activities and space in Urbana with our health and wellness facility, and making sure that Urbana, is often visited as well and is a program site. Goals in progress, obviously the big thing, the big wow is the health and wellness facility. Working with Farnsworth, I think we've got a good site selection and moving forward with that. Getting the public informed and up to speed and getting comments and feedback. We got the bonds in place to at least help kickstart that project and lining up our efforts for the park grant. Crystal Lake Park, we've again touched on with the Phase 2 landscape and the slope stabilization. Really pleased with that work. Derek and Andy covered the saline. Kickapoo Rail Trail and connectivity, the State Planning and Research Grant. We've got our draft, our first draft, and met with the stakeholders to share that. And we're hoping to complete that plan later in 2020. Carl is our local match, so we're happy about that. Thinking about You Belong Here initiatives and some of our outreach efforts, the Carl Play RX Scholarship. Pleased that we've awarded $12,000 so far, trying to be mindful of measures and metrics
Is
as
that
we
in
go
our-
here.
Excuse me, is that in our fiscal year or is that in the
It's in
calendar
this
year?
fiscal year.
This fiscal year. That is just wonderful.
It is. Outreach, obviously the Elnack Gardens, Play Days in the Park, Welcome Week, the Botter Peace Day event. I think just a comparative, last summer in 2018, you can see the number of individuals engaged with, certainly the summer of 2019, quite a bit more. So we're becoming more effective, more outreach, attracting more people.
I'll mention that as we reviewed the comments from the open house for health and wellness, there are a lot of folks from the neighborhood group that were there, neighbors that were really excited about the location.
Good.
Looking at Splash, increased the number of regular programming days, new programming at Urbana Middle and the high school transition program. Looking at ways to incorporate, basically spread the high quality effort of Splash to the other schools at Wiley, Yankee Ridge, and Thomas Paine. Certainly we talked about funding and transportation barriers, same type of things as the Nature Center, but looking for ways to overcome that.
Just wanted to input on the funding for Wiley, Yankee Ridge, and Thomas Paine. Primarily what we're talking about for funding in that standpoint is more of the educational portion, and that's like the schools reaching out to get the funding they need to do the other stuff that's included in Splash.
Again, looking at age-friendly, we've got quite a bit of efforts there. Jacob with a group he's working with. The Tech Help, the iPad and FaceTime 101, Urbana Park Walkers, our cooking with Chef Ryan. Some future things, smartphone photography. I think I should mention Jacob presented to UPDAC a couple of months ago, and it went really, really well. I think everyone was not really aware of all the interesting topics like these, and they were very impressed. Cybersecurity lectures, intergenerational splash, fresh programming. Obviously, we've got a very active green team. We tend to score well on our, whenever we look at our overall district-wide scores, some things we're working with. There's a lot of things, just a few highlights. Trying to work with our drivers in our vehicles just to reduce idling. Again, things you might not think about, but when it all adds up across the district, it could make a big impression. Really thinking about eliminating single-use items, particularly plastics. It's a challenge everywhere. It's something every municipality, every park district, any responsible agency is probably thinking about. Energy efficiency in lighting and solar panels, indoor and outdoor, and working with others on a sustainability plan or our climate approach to how we want to really make larger impacts on some of these challenging issues. Near the end, we're looking at our wage and benefits again, getting an update, working with a firm. That should be coming to us very shortly, back to the board. Obviously, we're looking at impacts of minimum wage changes and testing the market, any changes, and looking at benefits. As we always say, benefits are really critical and are equally attractive to bring in new staff to us.
Yeah, and as in our conversation the other day, it's not just monetary benefits. It's not just dental, medical.
Exactly.
Yes, there's
Right.
a lot of benefits that we have
Lots.
that are not measurable on the usual scale.
Exactly.
To make a difference to people who come to work for us.
Absolutely. Some things we're really looking at fresh that maybe we're not there yet with success. One of our goals was to really fresh look at athletics. A lot of talk, a lot of changes, a lot of districts around the state and the country are seeing some impacts. Things that we've noticed, we've talked to you a lot about, just that movement to more travel teams or almost like little pro leagues and how that affects what we call general recreation. Also, there's a lot of information out there showing that just movement and wide varieties of recreational programming are really beneficial to young people. Looking at what are the parent-family roles and how we can interact and send positive message and meet expectations and not necessarily overpromise so that we're staying in our lane. Also finding better ways to attract officials and coaches and training our volunteers. So those are some of the wide topics. Early on, we thought we were going to start working with ORPR at the University of Illinois, and I think some of the proposal stuff we got, while it started to make inroads, it was expensive, and we didn't really have the resource to, just jump right in. We looked at ways of breaking that down. There's now some new leadership changes at ORPR. There's going to be a new director there, so we kind of want to take a fresh start. We were working with Champaign Park District. They're also very interested in this topic. We looked at, I think we shared with you a class study that might have got us closer or got some prelim. That didn't really pan out. So we want to really take a fresh run at this. And we know UPDAC is very interested in this topic. It affects all of our participants, particularly the youth that are involved with athletics. And as we talk about reaching out and self-directed activities, underrepresented interest, it's an area we just haven't really reinvented at the Park District. And I think it's time that we do that. So again, we want to look at what can we do internally, evaluate our own programs, get some base information, and start looking at new avenues for new opportunities in athletics. So that's one that wasn't realized. This is another one. I think we had hopes on making a connection at Lohman, Thomas Paine, but we didn't receive the grant. So we'll likely apply again if there's another safe routes. People are still able to get to the site, but it would just be that much easier. And when we talk about accessibility, sure makes a difference if you have trails. So that's kind of a brief overview of our highlights, things we've accomplished, and a couple of areas that we just weren't really able to get the traction. I wouldn't call them failures. One was grant we didn't get. The other was sort of a reevaluation where we need to go. Questions on that?
I would just comment, we still provided the full list of our district-wide goals to you. We kind of color-coded it. The green means completed. The yellow means in process and the red are the ones that we're reevaluating. I think that's the gist of that. And we just wanted the board to have the full list so that if there were specific items that weren't covered in our highlights presentation, that you could certainly choose to have a discussion about them today or anytime, so that you just have those in front of you throughout the year.
I liked the color coding. I thought it made it very easy to track the three things, so.
And I really appreciate the presentation. I think this was great
Yes.
because there were visuals and
Right.
Yep.
highlighting
Right.
what's there. But so this, I really like this new format.
I wanted to thank Kelsey Beckie at our office. I think as we talk about it each year, she came up with an idea of why don't we try to put it into a easier format. Kara helped with some of the images and helped pull it together. Again, trying to get all of our strategic thinking, reports, messaging, all start
yep.
moving in the right direction and
Yeah.
try to do it
Yeah, and nice
with
design on
efficiency.
what you just had up there. I thought that was really quite good.
It's more digestible.
Yes,
Yep.
I agree.
Is that something you'd like to see again?
Yes.
Yes,
I like that.
more than a
format.
spoonful of sugar there. Helps them go
One
down.
last thing I want to mention, I know we talk about how important it is to review our goals and talk about them. We do the budget each month. Katie gives us a great overview, so we're touching those goals within that.
Right.
It doesn't seem like we have as much time. I noticed our study sessions, UPDAC and board meetings are chock full. We've got a whiteboard and the topics are pretty thick, and finding openings is going to become a challenge for us. There's actually things for UPDAC and for our study sessions we'd love to talk about, but we're kind of making wait list of topics. So I guess what I'm saying is I think we do goals and budget really well. We should look at it more often, but I know we have the confidence that we're going to meet those goals.
Yep.
Because we're motivated. So if you'd like to do it more often, we certainly could. Twice a year would be ideal. But at this end of the year, we thought it'd be a good time to talk about it.
Well, there's not much red and a lot of
Yeah.
yellow and green, and that's,
So-
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
This is what we're looking
yeah,
for.
6
You need
months to go.
understand.
It is indeed. All right, I believe we have no new business or any business removed from the consent agenda. So now we're down to comments for commissioners.
We're going into executive session.
Yes, we will, but so the plan here is we'll have our comments from commissioners. We will then go into executive session. We will do that, we will adjourn the executive session, then we'll come, we'll just sit at the same table and adjourn our regular meeting at that point.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and 10 minutes ought to cover our executive session, it won't be long.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so no one has any comments? Then I think that we need a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purposes of, I'm gonna just call it land acquisition.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.